There'll be a lot of irate citizens when they find out that they're paying for water that they're not going to get.
Oh, that's all taken care of. See, Mr. Gibbs, either you bring the water to L.A., or you bring L.A. to the water.
How are you going to do that?
By incorporating the valley into the city. Simple as that.
If water is gold, who's paying the price? Water droughts in California have historically continued, but why? If California has experienced record droughts, how has one billionaire couple managed to produce record agricultural profits? With the vast amount of profits in the billions, there must be no shortage of water. Or is it?
California going back to the drawing board to deal with their drought.
The governor ordering the strictest crackdown on water use in the state's history.
The cut doesn't apply to the state's agriculture industry. That's controversial.
It's called almond shaming. Apparently it takes 1 gallon of water.
This is a story about water, greed, power, and wealth. From secret closed meetings between investors and government officials to hidden farms out of the public spotlight. Hidden in plain sight, disguised as many things but that of which it actually is. How public water turned into private water of California's largest water bank. A project jump-started with $74 million in taxpayer money. Public betrayal, thirst for wealth, lies, deception, manipulation.
A scorching drought made worse by climate change is draining reservoirs at an
It takes
alarming
1
pace.
gallon of water to produce 1 almond.
California's drought and water crisis is creating a water war as corporate farms and orchards, small farmers, suburbs, cities, and new real estate developments compete for water.
Millions of people in Southern California are being ordered to cut their water use right now due to an historic drought.
California is imposing mandatory restrictions on water usage.
California's economy has always been tied to agriculture. So it makes sense that if water is California's friend, droughts are its enemy. Water is such a huge part of California's economy, it affects tourism, landscaping, home building, and farming. Water scarcity alone is so detrimental to a U.S. economy that it cost the U.S. a total of $21 billion in 2020. Water scarcity has created a demand. The relationship between the public and farmers has always been contentious. Droughts currently encompass 98% of California currently. Anytime money is involved, the relationship will always be fickle. California farms made a record profit of $49.8 billion, along with Oregon and Washington with $14.3 billion in 2018. So you have the public blaming the farmers blaming the public, with a bunch of finger pointing on who's using more or less water. On April 1st, 2021, California Governor Jerry Brown made an executive order that requires cities and towns to cut 25% of water use. That did not go over well with the public because it excluded agriculture, also known as the farmers. As I previously mentioned before, water droughts are not just exclusive to California. It's also affected other western states such as Colorado.
Tonight, news on the Colorado River. The warning from federal authorities just today that we're at a tipping point, in their words, saying historic water cuts to multiple states are now possible.
But, I mean, we're kind of used to that, right? We're always in drought, it seems, nowadays. Now, I think the question on all of our minds is, are we going to see more rain this winter?
Hey there. What I'd like to discuss with you right now is Patreon. I offer a Patreon, which is a subscriber-based opportunity for you to learn about investing in stocks from me. So initially when I created this video, as I mentioned before, it was about investing, and what I discovered was deeper. But on the other side of things, there's also opportunities to be made in the water industry from an investing standpoint. And if that's something you're interested in, the link is below. Patreon, I offer a subscription-based opportunity for you to learn investing from me, myself, to you. So hopefully you join me in the stock club. People have made money and it's been pretty successful. So hopefully you join me. And while you're at it, hit the like and subscribe button if you are enjoying this video. All right, let's get back to things.
So you're getting ready to say this is a company you can invest in? Yeah, that's what he's about to do.
We're going to learn how banks serve us.
When you hear the word bank, you either think of a savings or a money bank, unless you're a weirdo and you think of this other type of bank. But the bank in this particular video we're talking about is a bank of water. Water banks are a storage unit that's used to store water, obviously. In western states, specifically California, use water banks for the summer months. This diagram is the Kern Water Bank. The water that's stored in the Kern Water Bank is supposed to be for public and agriculture use, but obviously someone's getting more water than the other. And we'll go over that later on in detail in this video. But I want you to get used to the concept of a water bank. The Department of Water Resources in the state of California authorized the use of the Kern Water Bank. But as I mentioned before, money is the root to all evil. And where there's water and profits to be made, you're going to see evil. With supply and demand, if there's a greater demand than there is a supply, you're going to see pirate-like behaviors. Water scarcity is such a big deal in California that they even have lawyers that will assist you in water accumulation and water rights. So water's a pretty big deal in California, to say the least.
I'm doing it.
Gonna be a lot of irate citizens when they find out that they're paying for water that they're not gonna get.
Oh, that's all taken care of. See, Mr. Gibbs, either you bring the water to L.A., or you bring L.A. to the water.
How are you gonna do that?
By incorporating the valley into the city. Simple as that.
How much are you worth?
I've no idea. How much do you want?
No, I just want to know what you're worth. Over 10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Gibbs. The future.
That scene is from the movie Chinatown. Noah Cross is a villain in the movie. Noah Cross is the wealthiest person in LA. The irony of it, LA was built with California water that was stolen. Yes, you heard that right. Los Angeles, also known as LA, along with places like Beverly Hills, all possible because of water. And someone's getting rich off water. And most definitely, it's not you. And I'm not saying it's all bad, because without water, you have no Beverly Hills, you have no LA. So you're probably wondering, what's the issue?
You're making me nervous here.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
So who's really getting rich off water in the world? And how does it affect you and I? I grew up as a child assuming water was free. I mean, it's a natural resource that comes from Earth, right? So why would it be monetized and converted into something people have to pay for? I would not find out until later on as an adult that not only was water not free, but this precious resource was used for much more than I could ever imagine. Several months ago, I done some research into the water industry. I was looking to invest in it, so I needed some information. I began to go deeper into the information and stumbled across more than I bargained for. As I'm scrolling and researching on investing into water companies, I come across this infamous couple, Stewart and Lynda Resnick, both billionaires in the water industry out in California. This billionaire couple out west accumulated their massive reservoir of wealth early on by investing into these massive water banks. No harm, no foul, right? We all have access to invest and make a profit from water. It doesn't affect anything or anyone, at least that's what I initially thought. So I initially assumed that these water banks had been designed to help people in communities trap and store water. But before we begin, I need to go over a chemistry refresher in water. What exactly is water and what are its uses? Water is an inorganic compound with the chemical formula H2O. The name H2O, where is that derived from? We hear it often, but here's a refresher from chemistry. H2O indicates that each of its molecules contains one oxygen and two hydrogen atoms. But that's the scientific version, and quite frankly, in my opinion, the boring version. The main things you already know is that water is the most important thing to us as humans in our existence. Water covers about 70% of the Earth's surface, with seas and oceans making up most of the water volume on Earth, about 96% to be precise. The main focus in this video will be water that is used for agriculture, industrial, and domestic use.
Well, here I am again with $1,000 for one of our couples, and if any of them say the secret word, the duck will fly down and pay him $100. The word tonight is water.
And here's the $50,000. The irrigation system sure will be a godsend for us men.
And for the women, too.
You should be very proud of your father, Marge, for having sponsored the water project. It will develop the entire valley.
It does.
Well, Tom, in a year we'll control the whole valley, and we'll set up our own water project.
I know what you may be thinking. What exactly is a water bank? I had those very same questions. These massive water banks are giant reservoirs that trap water for storage purposes so that at a later time throughout the year, water can be called upon. Water banking is used all over the world, from America to Spain. In Spain, water banking was given a legislative basis by the 1999 water law. The socialist government elected in 2004 a plan to create a public water bank. A public water bank in each hydrographical basin as part of the Agua program. This program allows historical water resources to be reallocated for equity, efficiency, and sustainability. But we'll dive into that further down the road. The primary objective of a water bank is to bring together those holding legally valid water use entitlements interested in making the water available to those needing to obtain additional supplies of water for their uses. Broadly speaking, a water bank is a middleman. It's a mediator between lenders and borrowers. But what happens when the mediator becomes a lender to the borrower?
It does. Well, Tom, in a year we'll control the whole valley, and we'll set up our own water project.
So when I initially built this video, it was with the intentions that everything would be about investing. What I discovered was further on down the road, learning about Stewart and Lynda Resnick, both billionaires in the agricultural industry. Stewart and Lynda Resnick seemed to be legit, or at least I thought they were.
Bought a pistachio farm, and then on the pistachio farm were a lot of pomegranate trees.
Well, there were about 100 acres.
Oh, that's a lot.
And 100 acres.
Oh, that's a lot.
And it was then.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And the farmer said, let's pull it. And Stewart said, that's my husband, the visionary. And he said, let's see how they do.
So my mind's already blown away at first. Like, okay, it's actually people this wealthy from water. Then I go down an even bigger rabbit hole. What I initially thought to myself was, how is this even possible with California having record droughts and lacking water? So I dug further into the story. What I soon discovered was a story about corruption, manipulation, and politics as usual. It's beyond my imagination in America, land of the free and land of opportunity, that this would be going on. So let's just begin with this couple, the Resnicks. Just as I was, more than likely you're not familiar with the Resnicks. But if I'm a betting man, I'm sure you're familiar with the products they own and produce. So, this wonderful company was formerly known as Roll Global. It's a private corporation based in California, Los Angeles to be exact. This great conglomerate has revenue of over $4 billion. And yes, that's billion with a capital B. The wonderful company functions as a holding company for Stewart and Lynda Resnick and is a vehicle for their vast wealth that's driven by their personal investments in a number of businesses. The company currently counts as business divisions the following brands: Juice Company, Pom Wonderful, Bottled Water Company, Fiji Water, Wonderful Pistachios, Wonderful Halos, Justin's Vineyard and Winery, Landmark Vineyards, Teleflower, and in-house marketing agency Wonderful Agency. So, the Resnicks have a large share in many industries, not just one. This is where things got interesting. What initially started out, as I mentioned before, as an investment video about the water industry, quickly steered to the Resnicks and the Wonderful Company. The Wonderful Company umbrella is a very broad and vast, as I previously mentioned, company. On the outside or surface level, you see its wealth built on Pom, Fiji Water, Wonderful Pistachios, Wonderful Almonds, Wonderful Halos. Yes, those halos you and I eat. Teleflora, Floral Service Company, and last but not least, many wine companies. What do all those companies have in common? Every last one of the products I mentioned are intertwined with water. The very pistachio that we all eat, yes, I'm talking about you and I. It takes 1 gallon of water to grow one pistachio. And I'm not talking one bag, I'm talking a pistachio nut.
Oh. Mm. Whoa. Whoa.
Humpty Dumpty does it with a great fall. Wonderful Pistachios. Get cracking.
So that means an 8-ounce pistachio bag has about 170 nuts, which means it takes about 170 gallons of water to make that 8-ounce bag. And check this out. If the Wonderful Company grows not only pistachios, but also almonds, lemons, limes, mandarins, and pomegranates, that means they are using an estimated 150 billion gallons of water a year. That's 2/3 on just nuts alone.
What is he doing? I'm storming out.
I know what you're thinking. This is just nuts. I had the same thoughts myself. You're telling me this couple has this much power, this vast wealth in the water industry? They even have influence over lawmakers and other politicians. Water has many names around different parts of the world. In Spanish, it's pronounced as agua. In China, it's shui. Japanese, mizu. The names may change for different regions, different people, but the purpose and use of water still remains the same for all of us. When you think of water, what comes to mind? If it's anything like my imagination, I think of water as pure. I think of it as a natural, raw resource that comes from Mother Nature, better known as Earth. When I describe water as natural, that's meaning it's neither created nor processed by man. Water is a gift from nature, but it's come to the point where it's become scarce in some areas of the world, in particular, America. While I'm not an expert, such as a hydrologist, I do know that water is scarce, and out west, it's become even worse. So my question to you is water scarcity man-made, or is it something that's happened because of climate change?
All these acres in the middle of drought, the almond trees are growing, the pistachio trees are growing. They're able to do that largely through the state water project.
Nut tree crops in the Central Valley of California are pretty common. A single almond requires 1 gallon of water. According to Forbes magazine, the Wonderful Company uses about 120 billion gallons of water a year, and 2/3 of that is used on nuts. For visual purposes, that's enough water to supply San Francisco residents with enough water for a decade. In addition, the Resnicks own a majority share of the Kern Water Bank, one of California's largest underwater water storage facilities. The Kern Water Bank is capable of storing 500 billion gallons of water. That's billions with a B. The acquisition of the water bank by the Resnicks is very controversial because the Kern Water Bank was created with taxpayer money and their water sales profit from this. The fact that this taxpayer-developed infrastructure makes massive amounts of money while California suffers from droughts is obviously baffling. What began as an investing video became much more than that once I discovered that Lynda and Stewart Resnick own Westside Mutual, Roll International, which is now Wonderful Company, and Paramount Farms. So this is a spider web of wealth over the water in California. Anytime money is involved or scandal, they say there's always a paper trail. In this case, there's a water trail.
Here and there to specialty markets and ethnic groups. But what Resnick did was he ended up buying this land that had some pomegranates on it and saying, let's make some juice out of it. And then doubling that acreage and doubling it again. Somewhere around 10,000 acres maybe of pomegranates. Huge, huge.
So there's literally people suffering from droughts in California and Arizona and other residing states, and 120 billion gallons is spent on agriculture. Is that right? So 120 billion gallons of water is used by the Kern Water Bank. For over 10 years, a record-breaking drought has scorched Central California. Drive west to Bakersfield into the heart of the San Joaquin Valley, and soon you will be engulfed by sloping brown hills, broken up by dusty, slate-colored fields. Desolate little towns off the highway dot the parched landscape. Lost Hills, population 2,400, consists largely of a tamale shack, a mostly empty James Dean themed shop, a dilapidated tire shop, and a rundown pool hall. The irony of it all, the Garden of Eden in the biblical times meant a green, lush garden. Well, out west, Eden is a place where the Resnicks own 70,000 acres of pistachio and almond trees. So what you have here, you have Roll International Group, you have Westside Mutual Water Group, you have the Kern Water Group, and it's all owned by the Wonderful Company. So the Wonderful Company is disguised as just one company, but it's bigger than that. They own over 57% of the Kern Water Group, so they have majority share in the Kern Water Group. So as you can see, Stewart and Lynda Resnick have a large imprint on California water.
If you drive the valley here, all these acres in the middle of drought, the almond trees are growing, the pistachio trees are growing.
The Resnicks use at least 120 billion gallons a year, 2/3 on nuts, enough to supply San Francisco's 852,000 residents for a decade. They own a majority stake in the Kern Water Bank, one of California's largest water underground facilities in the world. The Resnicks bought it from the government 20 years ago and are majority shareholders over it. This water bank is capable of storing 500 billion gallons of water, and they spent $35 million in recent years buying up more water from nearby districts to replenish their supplies. I took a trip not too long ago to the grocery store, and the Wonderful Company's imprint is so large that as soon as you step in every produce aisle, it's very obvious that their products are on the shelf, and the marketing is just wonderful. 1 million of acres is committed to almond trees out in California, and it takes 1 trillion gallons of water to supply enough water for the almond trees. That's 1 gallon for each nut, and that's 1/5 of used on the agricultural industry in comparison to the general public you.
They were also able to buy from the state. The state had invested $30 million in an underground water bank.
What is it about a brand's story that has to be so compelling?
You know, we're raised on the narrative. It's part of our DNA. Before there was language, a written language, there were stories. It's the way the human species developed, stories that were passed on from generation to generation. Then we had the written word, etc. So it's really important that your brand has a story to tell, but it has to be a real story. It isn't the sort of thing that you can make up as you go along. It's not a marketing ploy. It's really finding the value in the brand and the unique selling proposition and telling your potential consumers about it.
Fiji Water is a gift from nature to us, to repay our gift of leaving it completely alone. Bottled at the source, untouched by man. It's Earth's finest water.
Agriculture's king and queen have a history of taking natural resources in pursuit of profit. The Resnicks' actions in Fiji, where they have filled millions of plastic bottles with water and shipped them thousands of miles across the world, comes with conflict. The residents of Fiji don't always have access to potable water themselves, and it's infuriated environmentalists. "44% of California is in exceptional drought." Droughts over the years have been pretty scorching in California. And if you look at this chart here, it's shown since 2010. The red portions showing that drought in California is pretty serious. And that's where money's made at. The Wonderful company has been criticized for its aggressive consumption of water in the drought-ridden state of California. The company has expanded its business even as California residents have faced water shortages in the water ecosystem. So you see this large California aqueduct that is taking water from one area to another. Just think of it as a large garden hose. You can't talk about California or Los Angeles without including the California water wars. So you have here, it says the California water wars were a series of political conflicts between the city of Los Angeles and farmers and ranchers in the Owens Valley of Eastern California over water rights. So right here, this is showing you that this is a part of history that you did not learn about. How LA was built, Los Angeles. Throughout history, it's been constant conflict.
The rivers of the middle of California certainly have been rivers of agriculture.
Without the Owens River, LA would not exist. LA was a flatland before the water came. That's what most people don't know. The high rises, they came later. The skylines all came later. LA was a beginning city. Hollywood, it wasn't a thing yet. So wherever the water leads, that's where the wealth is.
We have here a kind of soil and sunshine and a proximity to the Great Sierras that, if God intended a place to be something, he probably intended this place, the middle of California, to be farmland. But that sprawl has come up and over the mountain from Los Angeles, and it's starting to eat up some of the best farmland here in the San Joaquin Valley.
The Los Angeles Aqueduct system, comprising the Los Angeles Aqueduct and the second Los Angeles Aqueduct, is a water conveyance system built and operated by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Think of an aqueduct as a garden hose. So you have an aqueduct that's going from the Owens Valley over near Nevada all the way to LA. So just think of it as a large garden hose that's 250 miles. No big deal, right? So this aqueduct that goes from the Owens River to LA, it was designed by Chief Engineer William Mulholland. He actually went on vacation to go see the Owens River, and he came away with a scheme to still the water and build LA. So William Mulholland is a large part of LA's history, and that's what most people don't know. So this guy, William Mulholland, that's the guy that's responsible largely for LA's development. Mulholland, it worked out well for him in the history books, but it didn't end well, because along with that came death, and it was not pretty.
You know, after the peace, I mean, the farmers felt guilty about it, and every week or two they drop off bottled water to some of these families. But this little town, you know, these folks are now faced with this question, you know, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? Are we going to stay here, this place that sustained us for all these decades, or are we going to leave? And that was the question that was asked, you know, at church that day I went. You know, the reverend up there is saying that nature is having its way and only a whisper in God's ear can change it. And the people saying, wait a second, Reverend, you know, this has a lot more to do with greed than what you're, you know, and a lot more to do with man than nature.
Let's take a deeper look of the LA Aqueduct. This is the LA Aqueduct. Remember, I said it's 250 miles long. That's showing water that's going from Owens River all the way to LA. That's how long the LA Aqueduct is. And this is the Owens River before. This was back in 1906, before they started siphoning water from the Owens Valley River. This is a part of history that you have not learned, and I'm a California native from San Diego. So this is something I learned on my own later on in life. It wasn't taught to me in the educational system, and that's because it's conflict involved with it. Unfortunately, you would not have the great state of California if the water wasn't shared. It's just the actions that went with it.
There's an old saying in the West, Mr. President, that there's no fight like a water fight. And there has been, and it was a running fight, and a bitter one at times in the state of California. A water fight for many years, and it took real statesmanship and real leadership to meet this point of culmination today. But this is a high point, I think, in the history of California, that you have overcome sectionalism, you have overcome the divisions that were preventing development and growth.
It is now my high honor and great privilege to present to you the President of the United States.
Things do not happen, they are made to happen. And this project is the result and our action today of 30 years of men, some of whom have now died, who thought that this dam would help this valley. And the other point that I think has been most useful about this trip is to see how Americans can work together. We are a very independent people, 180 million. And it is hard for us to agree on any course of action. We always have some different ideas of how that course of action can be made more perfect. And yet in this case, one part of your state has been willing to help another part. In the case of Colorado, western Colorado has been willing to divide its water with eastern Colorado. In the case of this project in Colorado and South Dakota, the people from the eastern United States have been willing to invest their tax money in this part of the country because they realize that as this state does well, so does the United States. And I think that those who took part in this and made it possible should feel the strongest sense of pride, because all those years when people in this state said it was impossible, and those who had water wanted to hug it and not make it available to all those who lived in dry areas. Many state administrations in California, including some of the most distinguished, wrestled with this problem. But I believe that all Californians will remember the leadership which your distinguished governor has given to this great cause of making water available to the people of this state. And I salute him for it. The federal and the state governments Let's find ways to make outdoor recreation spots available, and to do it now. We're going to have 300 million people in another 40 years in this country. A lot of them are going to live in California, and a lot of them are going to live from Illinois east. And they're going to be working shorter hours as automation and technology comes along. And where are they going to spend their time? And what beaches are they going to visit? And what forests and parks are they going to see? Unless we take the steps today to make those facilities available to them, we will have a massive city which spreads blight into the countryside and children growing up without ever seeing a natural grown tree. I think we ought to do it in the 1960s, as Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt helped do it for us. This is our task in the simplest terms, to strengthen the United States of America. And I'm confident that here in California, which looks to the future and not to the past, that you understand that lesson well. And I hope from this great project will spread a renewed sense of commitment by all the American people, so that this country in 1962 can continue to move forward.
View behind you and across the valley.
Where's this glass?
Beyond that projection over there, Governor, and on the opposite one over here and across the valley here.
Everybody ready? Ready? One.
You now see a helicopter flying, dropping smoke, which will be at the height of the dam itself. That is the crest height.
The crazy thing about the relationship of it all is William Mulholland had the backing of several presidents, not including Roosevelt. So you have someone that's a land developer and a politician, along with LA mayor, going after Owens Valley's water. And then you have the backing of the US President Roosevelt. So yeah, there was a lot of political conflicts and conflicts of interest with the destruction of Owens Valley, leaving it a dust ball, and the water going over to LA. And they've tried to get the water back, but as you can see, it hasn't been successful. It's caused a lot of issues. And I'm not an environmentalist or someone that you would refer to as a tree hugger. I just want to get the information out there and the truth out there, because without truth, you can't present information. And I'd be sitting here lying and hypocritical if I didn't expose this part of it to you as an investor. So I still will continue to invest in the water industry, but I just want you to be aware of things and see them as a student of the game, such as war stocks. War stocks are a situation and an area that I may present to you for informational purposes. If you invest in it, that's fine with me. That is me more so saying here is an opportunity, but my moral beliefs or competition doesn't, yeah, you know what I mean. My moral beliefs don't collide with it, so I can't have war and I can't have my moral beliefs collide. So I particularly don't invest in the war industry, but others do, and that's fine. That's just me. And it's not all bad, because LA was created because of the Owens Valley scandal. So what you have here is a situation where water was stolen from one place, created a dust bowl, and there was contentious relationships that were exposed during that time and fractured between politicians, land developers, and the farmers in Owens Valley. So everybody is bitter over it. And that doesn't include the Native Americans, and that's going deeper than this video should go. But you have a series of conflicts, and then you have violence, which seems to be the American way. If you made it this far, I just want to thank you, because these videos are time consuming. When I tell you, it was a lot of research that went into it, a lot. I have stacks of paper, hours spent. This video probably spent well over 20 to 30 hours of continuous study. And that's not even telling you all the research before I could even start. So if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it. Once again, if you like and subscribe, and also to join my Patreon stock club, where you can learn more information on investing. Depending on where you're at in the world, have a good day or night, and just thank you for tuning in. Mulholland's legacy is tainted. It's blurred because here you have a man that delivered the LA Aqueduct, and so people trusted this great engineer. But later on, we seen with the California dam giving way that killed over 400 people. That didn't go over too well with people throughout history. So this big aqua dam breaks and sweeps 400 people away, killing them all.
See, Mr. Gitz, most people never have to face the fact that at the right time and the right place, they're capable of anything.